Hi everyone. Markets turned on the burners today. You can see we broke through that level that we talked about, pushed right through that zone this morning, rallied right up to the next level at 514.92. And now let's take a look at those medium-term charts and see if we can find some direction from here. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Moving over to fear and greed, we were at a 76, up from a 66 yesterday. You can see on the charts continuing to grind higher here through that previous high. Strength continuing to grind higher. Breadth also going slightly higher today. Still in fear though. Interesting, it's the last one of the major three that is in fear or even below the neutral line. Hook-call ratio continuing to be very low, but it did step up slightly to a 0.62. Interesting. Volatility continuing to trend lower makes sense. Safe haven demand back into extreme greed as stocks continue to outperform here. And then junk bonds continuing to trend higher on this. A little bit of interesting movement there. Still sitting in regular greed, but trending higher. Looking at seasonality, remember the first part of this month is supposed to be bullish here through the first week into the early second week before we see a little bit of a pullback into that second week. So bullish conditions here for the first week, and that's what we've seen so far. Moving over to the economic calendar here for the Monday, global U.S. manufacturing PMI came in pretty good there at a 49.7, still below the 50 line, but better than expectations. Construction spending also good. ISM manufacturing PMI, again, below the 50 line, but better than expectation. Manufacturing prices continue to come in. That's what we wanted to see there. And then looking at Tuesday, JOLTS job openings at 10 o'clock. Looking for Wednesday, we have global composite PMI, global services PMI, factory starts, non-manufacturing PMI. So some economic data here for the Wednesday, Fed Powell speaking in the afternoon. And then for the Thursday, we still have initial jobless claims as always, as well as continuing jobless claims. Fed balance sheet, which continues to taper off nearly at that 6.9 billion. This has gone down a lot over the past couple years. And then looking at the Friday, we get Eurozone GDP and then all of that employment data. Moving over to max pain for the Friday, it's sitting at 593, still well below current price. Current price sitting all the way up at 603.77. And you can see bearish across the board, pretty much as far out as you can go through May of next year. So lots and lots of bearish max pains here over the next couple days. You can see 602 is the max pain for today. Still a little bit below price, but hanging in there. 600 for the next couple days up until that Friday session where you have a pretty decent step down into that 593 area. See how it plays out. Right now, we're kind of finishing at the top of the puts, so markets still showing a little bit of bullishness despite all of these max pains being to the downside. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps, you can see we got a 0.18 move here today. NASDAQ did outperform, but you can see we are continuing to grind along this trend line. Hit the trend, pulled back. The high of day was 604.32, and the trend is right there, 604.44. So pretty much touched it. Zoom in here a little bit. Realistically, it probably needs to move down right to that peak. Marking the top from the previous close makes sense to me, right in here. And that would give you pretty much right on top of it there. So touch the trend, continuing to grind slowly higher. The price target for tomorrow, as long as this trend continues to hold, would be right there at 606.10, 606.15 or so. See how it plays out, but for now, continuing to grind along this trend line here. Momentum bullish, RSI continuing to trend up, nearly overbought once again. Obviously, this is a higher high at this point. You would expect a higher low, even if we did get a pullback. So see how it plays out. If you saw the weekend video, still thinking this is very, very extended on the medium to long term, but you have to trade the markets you have. And you can see here in the short time frames, we gapped down, held the 21 EMA, didn't even test it, rallied right back to that trend line here, and then continuing to hold the after hours, looking for a push to that next zone as we grind in tomorrow's price action, somewhere around that 605.50 area. So overall, still looks good. Fairly interesting to see a decent amount of volume there in this last consolidation time frame. Decent volume on the last candle, which was a little bit of a selling candle, but probably not a major effect. Overall, still bullish. Moving over to the Tasty charts here just for a moment, you can see we hit that second ATR band. That was kind of the upper limit there at 603.88. If we continue to grind along that area, it really only gives you about $1.50 of potential upside tomorrow. Upper band is sitting at 605.29, so pretty much in line with that trend we just talked about. Volume did turn a little bit bullish here on the volume weighted MACD, and then you can see relative volume still very low. Makes sense for a Monday. You can also see the ATR trailing stop stepped up a little bit today. That is currently sitting at 599.95. Moving over to the NASDAQ here, a very strong day, 1.09% on the day, pushing right to that next level at 514.29. We talked about this consolidation in here being a critical zone. We had the highs back from the Monday session last week, pushed right through that, and then we rallied almost to the trend here at 516.71, just above these previous highs on that wick. So we did get a new all-time high wick at 516.26. Did pull back from there slightly, and now we're right at the highs from the Monday 11th candle, just barely above my level here at 514.92, which was the wick high back from that Friday the 8th candle. So continuing to watch that level, momentum stepping back to bullish, RSI stepping back to bullish, stepping back above the SMA. You can see that here. The previous candle was just barely above it, and now we've pushed clean above it, looking for those overbought conditions. This is a zone of resistance, however. We'll see how this trend continues to act as resistance or not at 517.43. Everything continues to look bullish, though, here on the NASDAQ. The structure is still very much bullish. We had this wider band that we've been watching, but we've kept it really tight, kind of grinding price action, waiting to see if this midpoint here is going to be critical or not. That's the trend that we're butting up against, is my midpoint of this kind of bullish structure here. If it pushes through here, we could look for one of those kind of rally culmination style moves up into that 540 area. That would be quite dramatic, kind of similar to what we had here, right? So we got through this trend, pushed up here, established this structure between these 2 points here, and then we pulled back and established this structure here from this low to this previous low here. And that's really what I'm working off of. We haven't seen a touch of that in a while, but seems like we could get another push into that zone potentially over the next couple of weeks. But again, critical zone right here as we look at this chart. And then looking at it here on the shorter time frames, you can see consolidation of trends, looking at resistance. 514.92 is the support, needs to hold in there. Momentum is definitely extended. You can see how strong of a day it was, all the way up in the 78, 75 area, pretty much all day for RSI. So based on this, I would expect at least a little bit of pullbacks, trend support in here, 512.04. See if it holds that zone or not, and then pushes back up to the trend, or if it breaks through this structure heading back to that 200 down at 505. Definitely something to watch, but right now everything is very bullish, and I would expect higher lows to hold if we did get a pullback in tomorrow's session. And then moving over here to the Tasty charts, you can see we did push straight up to that upper ATR band, which was your resistance here today. So that was sitting at 515.86. Overthrew it briefly. You can see it's flattening out here, so this should be your upper resistance. Generally, you get grinding price action if you're going to stay on those upper ATR bands. The NASDAQ had been lagging, but we got a little bit of a push here today, back into line where with the SPY charts. And then once we hit that band, again, you can see two candles of sideways action. We'll see if we pull back to the 8. The 8 EMA would be your support at 512.65, which is pretty much in the same area that we were looking at on the previous charts. So momentum on the volume weighted MACD still bullish. Again, looking for that higher low setup. Maybe we pull back into here, hold that support, and then push from there. But either way, I would expect it to either grind slowly here over the next couple days, or you do eventually get that kind of pullback action and then the continuation higher. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, these have both been quite extended. The Russell did throw a hanging man candle, but it ended up holding up quite well at 0.05, momentum stepping down. The level here is 241.05. As long as that continues to hold on a closing basis, then we should be in good shape. Again, the trend is still very much bullish. We are still very much extended, but holding up quite well. The volume did increase on that selling candle, which is a little bit concerning, but so far it looks okay. And then looking at the Dow, did pull back here a little bit more, 0.3 back below this trend, momentum stepping down. Maybe that's where you start to get a little bit more pullbacks here. That would be interesting. Seems like the Russell and the Dow are taking a little bit of a backseat here early in the week. Moving over to stocks that moved here today, I wanted to call out SMCI. So we got a little bit of an all clear kind of call from SMCI. They got a new accountant that said their books should be in good shape. And on the back of that news, they got a move of 28.6% to the upside, hitting this trend line here that I had on the charts from this low back in September to the low here beginning of October. Hit this trend again, but this is a crazy move. It doesn't look that crazy, but it is. So you can see here, this is about a 65% fall after we got the news of their accountant leaving. You can see huge volume on the day, and then from that low, we've had a 150% run on SMCI. So absolutely massive moves here on this stock, and it's definitely done things like this before. You can see back December of 23 had a run of about 380%. Absolutely colossal, straight up price action from there. Question here now is this trend line, right? So we hit the trend line, it's up after hours. If it breaks through the trend, we're probably headed back to 48.89. And then if it breaks that level, the next level for me, the next kind of zone of supply would be this next level here at 63.05. So interesting to see it. We'll see how it plays out. Very, very volatile stock, so be cautious if you're going to be trading it, but we're pretty much right at that level after hours. If it pushes through there, I think you could see at least another 11% potentially tomorrow. And then if it pushes through there, you're looking at about another 43 to 44% move, in my opinion. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple having a beautiful run here. We've talked about the breakout back on Monday last week. Big push to the trend here, clean break through that trend line. This is all-time highs again for Apple, which is now sitting at 240.79. Let's go ahead and add a level there. Now we'll see if we can get above that level and hold clean break from there. I don't know if that level will end up staying. We'll see how this price action ends up playing, but momentum still very, very bullish. RSI nearly overbought on this run. Again, we made an all-time high. Usually there's a little bit more to come after that. And then similarly here, you got Microsoft breaking above the level, 429.88. That was what we were looking for. Now we're above this consolidation. We've been above it before, couple of times, but since then we haven't really been above it since the end of October. Now we're back above it here in December. We'll see if we get this run into that 440 area. We were looking for this structure here. We were looking for the breakdown, but we're back above the level. Again, trade the markets you have. This looks like a breakout hold of the 21 continuation style move. Back through this trend line here, if we extend that out, push through these levels, does look good, 1.78%. If we get the continuation to that next level, you should be looking for about another 2.25% move from there. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla had a great day as well, 3.46%, pushing right back to that trend line. Continues to be very important here for price. Touched that trend, pretty much closed on it. After hours, falling quite a bit, about $5. This is probably on the back of the news that Elon is seeing another roadblock in his $50 billion compensation, but momentum stepping to bullish, RSI stepping to bullish. We'll see if this continues to hold, if we get a breakout here or not. And then looking at NVIDIA, up day 0.27, nothing crazy. Momentum stepping towards bullish, RSI still looking a little bit bearish here. Still want to see it rally up, touch the 21 at 142.33, reject from there. If we get a rejection from there, that's going to be a great setup in my opinion. For now, we're coming off of the 55, waiting to see if we can get through that level or not. Still hasn't even gotten above my 140.76 level. The weakness on today's charts for NVIDIA is a little bit ominous for me, especially because overall markets were pretty good, especially the NASDAQ was pretty good. But now you have NVIDIA lagging markets. To me, it feels like this trade might be culminated. Left shoulder head, right shoulder setting up, waiting for a retest of that right shoulder, 21 EMA zone, and then get that rejection from there. And then you might see a true change in structure for NVIDIA, or at least a more medium-term pullback down to these kind of 144s, maybe even the 200s, somewhere between 13 and 20% lower. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet. Amazon did end up pushing back to that level, 212.25, looking for the trend, 214.12 or so, maybe a little lower, 213.90, somewhere in there. Momentum stepping back to bullish, RSI getting just above the SMA. Still looks good here, but still looking at that trend as resistance. And then looking at Google, had a pretty good day, 1.46%. Momentum swinging to bullish, RSI going to be resistance here at the SMA. We'll see if we touch that tomorrow. Kind of a very similar setup for me compared to NVIDIA for Google. You can see 21 EMA, VWAP acting as resistance here. So you got the big breakdown, deep cut. If we rally up and hit that point and then reject from there, that again is going to be a significant change in structure for me. We'll see if it does it tomorrow. If we even get a touch of that area, that's going to be 175.05. Watching this closely here for me tomorrow. Definitely think that could be an interesting setup. And if it does, I think this is probably going to reject at least down to the 161 area, which would be about a 7.5% down move. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, both of these hanging in there. You got staples 0.12 to the downside. Didn't quite make it to that target 83.43. I think we still could get there. We are still holding trend support. We did wick all the way down to 82.53. The low of day was 82.52. So we touched the level, found support, momentum stepping down, a little bit of volume. So definitely extended. Maybe we get the higher low setup continuation up to those upper levels. See how it plays out. It's been a run, but we're showing a little bit of hesitation ahead of that key level at 83.43. And then looking at discretionaries continuing to jump here, 0.87, looking for this trend here. So I added this trend just to give it a little bit of context. We were basically in no man's land up until this upper trend in the 234 area, but you can see tags the top back here in August, tags the top here in September, tags this most recent high in November. We pulled back. Now it seems like we're headed back up to this trend here around the 228, 229 area. We'll see if we touch that level. Momentum still bullish. RSI still super overbought. Look at that volume on the day. Big volume to the upside. Getting driven higher by both Tesla and Amazon. Maybe it has a little bit more in it. Another $4 to $5 or so. Moving over to RIOT and Marathon. Both of these getting a little bit of a pullback here. Holding the 21 there for RIOT. This is kind of consolidation. Momentum bearish. RSI bearish. This is probably going to roll to the downside here. The weekly chart looked much better, but the daily does not look so good. And then looking at Mara, you also got the gap up, gap down, big wick rejection. You're still holding trend support if you didn't get stopped out on this move, but momentum stepping down, RSI stepping down there on the daily chart. We'll see how this ends up holding here. This is a little bit of a bearish setup for me. Gap up, gap down, island reversal, hanging man style candle. Doesn't look super great. Again, same thesis as RIOT. Weekly looks good, daily not so much. Moving over to 20 and 50-day breadth, you can see gap down, ended up rallying a little bit, but momentum stepping down, still above the RSI, might see a little bit of a pullback into that area and then continuation style rally. But this is looking like a high, higher high, looking for a low, higher low setup in here. Similarly on 50-day breadth, same kind of move, high, higher high, looking for a low, higher low in here. Want to see it hold that 21 EMA in that 62.25 area. Momentum stepping down, RSI stepping down on both of these. So a little bit of weakness underneath the hood for markets, despite the fact that they did hold up quite well on the day. Moving over to the dollar here on the hourly and the daily, you can see we did get a pretty bullish day, 0.57%, hit the 200, rejected from there a little bit, held the higher low on the 21 on that hourly, pushing towards that 200 once again at 106.61. And you can see that same area being resistance here on the 9 EMA, waiting to see if that zone is going to be true resistance, or if we're going to push right through that zone and head back up to these trends here around 107.75. We said this kind of looked like a left shoulder head, right shoulder. Now we're starting to get that right shoulder. We'll see if that resistance is the 106.8 area like it was on this left shoulder here. Momentum stepping to bullish, RSI still well below the SMA, so we were looking for the retest, rally up, touch the SMA, reject from there if it's going to do it. If it does that, that should give us some more bullishness in equities, but in the short term, we're looking for a little bit of a rally here in the dollar. And that is what we're seeing here on the Monday, potentially into that Tuesday session. Moving over to JNK and TLT, you can see we did get a gap down and fall on JNK, down 0.59, retesting the 21 EMA. This is an interesting setup here, one of my favorites actually, where you get a clean breakout, retest the level, hold in that trend, and then get the continuation up to the next one at 97.69. Momentum stepping down, critical zone here. You can see the highly traded zone there as well. Need that to hold. That is sitting at 96.65. And then you can see TLT finding resistance at that 55 EMA. Push through the 100, push through the 200 on the daily, looking at the 55, looking at that 144. We talked about this being a zone of resistance, and it is acting that way so far. But even if we did, my expectation is that we would pull back, retest the 21 EMA at 91.47, hold that, and then get the continuation style run. So initial test style move, hitting some resistance, a little bit extended, want to see a slight pullback, higher low setup, continuation move. Moving over to my accounts, you can see I made a few $100. Everything worked out quite well. The Russell held up well enough for me to make money on that position. And then the Qs rallied super aggressive, rolled all of these calls out quite aggressively to 7 days from now, up at 518, 519. That's sitting on about $5.50 of credit there. And then I have a 513 there at $4.20 credit. We talked about the resistance that I'm concerned about. We'll see if the Qs break down from there. If we break out of this structure, obviously I'm going to have to take these off and let markets rally without some calls on. So critical zone, waiting to see if we break through. If they do, I will take these calls off. If not, these calls will hopefully protect me at least a little bit on the falling price action. And then IWM, I put it back on my Roth account, put that on for 241 for tomorrow's session. So pretty good position there. Shares are positive, bought pretty close to the low of the session. And you can see $1.18 credit. So my max profit there is going to be 242.18. And you can see current stock price 241.78. So should be able to pull in a little bit of credit here. Even if we do get a little bit of a rally in tomorrow's session, I'll have plenty of flexibility. So either way, good position on both of these in my opinion, and overall a good trading day. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the charts and the price action today. What do you think about breadth falling while markets are holding up? And are the Qs going to carry us higher? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.